Hello there, sword friends. Today I'm going to tell you about this custom sword right here. The title probably introduced it. It is a custom project, and the swords are made by Howard Clark. But there's other craftsmen involved and other details to share, and hopefully it's interesting. And that's what this video is going to be. Now, I'm not going to use the swords. I'm certainly not going to break them. These things cost like a car. It's a very expensive set of swords. I don't know if I'm going to keep them yet. I may well do that, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The gist is, though, I'm going to talk about the bits and bobs, the features, why I think they're cool, why I had them made, etc., etc. Now, the stuff, the punchlines, the things to get out of the way. First, we have an L6 katana from Howard Clark. That's the material he's probably most famous for using. He uses these katanas. He's known for his heat treatment and capability there. They're known to be very, very durable, robust blades, and that's what the katana is made from. The Tanto is also made from Howard Clark, or made by Howard Clark, not from Howard Clark. That would be weird, though I don't know if some of him may have fallen into the mixture. I'm not sure. Regardless, it's a Tanto. It's made by Howard Clark and shows a little of his capability as a knife maker, which is also a profession he has. Some people don't know he's a master smith, a master knife maker, and this is a folded steel blade in a SanMai construction. So something very different from his L6, but also something he's very capable of and has his own unique style in. The fittings are largely antique. So the fuchi kashira, the minuki are antique on the Tanto. The fuchi kashira are made by Rado sword on the katana up here. So Rado sword, Radovan, his swords are also very well regarded. He's a smith. I'll link his website in the description down below, as well as Howard's, as well as Josiah, who did the polish on both of these blades. But he made this fuchi kashira for me, and the intent here is basically to match the Subba. I found this Subba, I paid way too much for it, and it is a Subba that has swirly mitsudomes on it. I wanted to use it in this project, and I needed a set of fuchi kashira that matched. And I looked for years for something that matched this Subba, but I either found things that were too elaborate, that didn't have the same kind of subtle taste, or were way out of my price point. Regardless, I got this set of fuchi kashira from Rado. The minuki on the katana as well are antique, and the same, the minuki on the Tanto as well as on the katana in this kind of 3 mitsudome pattern. Now, I could have had either of these restored. Josiah is capable of doing some restoration work on these fittings. I opted not to do that and to kind of preserve the condition they were in as antiques. And also because I intended to, well, I always do this with projects, but this one in particular, I intended to have for me to use. Now, if I'm going to use a sword, I don't necessarily mind. I appreciate the art on very elaborate swords. However, I wanted something that would age well, that if I fumbled around with it, I'm not a particularly great practitioner, if I choked up on it, that I wouldn't diminish too much by handling it. And that's what I feel I have here with these antique fittings. They're not of any overwhelming value, or if they are particularly valuable, they're not going to be really diminished too much by me handling them and using them in the course of doing tamashigiri, which this blade is absolutely capable of, or doing yaido, which also the blade is very capable of. Anyway, I'm going to move down. I'm going to start with the fuchi kashira on the katana, and then I'll talk about the same components on the Tanto as I move down. So again, this is made by Rado Sword. He's a very competent sword maker. I incidentally recently got a sword from him, and it's also just amazing in a different way than this, but equally just a very fun and wonderful sword. I encourage you to check his work out. He did a very simple set of mitsudome cut-in to match the Subba work, which also has this swirly mitsudome on it. So I wanted something that would thematically blend, also be subtle. He offered to do some very elaborate, cool stuff, and he offered to do it for not that much more money, but I elected to just keep simple carvings. That was the goal, and that's what was done here. They're done in steel, I believe, and patinated black. The black matches the handle well. It doesn't match the Subba well, but the Subba could easily be patinated black if that's something I want to do at a later date. Again, I preserved the original antique fitting appearance here. So they're simple mitsudome cut-ins over steel. Nothing particularly crazy, in a simple, small shape. The Mystery Man in black has done the mount here. Black silk is what was used in a Hinari-maki style, just simple. It feels great though. The size is as big as I want it to be. I have big giant sausage hands, but I generally prefer a smaller grip. This blends with the fuchi kashira really, really well, and it's about as big and robust as I'd want it to be. At the same time, it's not too big. It doesn't feel axe-handly. It's just right at the edge of where my comfort zone is, and it suits this sword quite well, which is really quite a large sword. It also has a large nodule samigawa on it in a full wrap. The nodules here, I don't typically want large nodule samigawa when I do a black lacquered sword. However, the cost of this sword is just so profound that spending the extra couple $100s on a really nice skin, even though the details are somewhat obscured, didn't really seem like too much. Anyway, the Ito feels really nice. It's very tight. It's secure on there. The shape is quite good. I would note that right now you can hear maybe a little bit of rattle. even swords that cost as much as a car have a little bit of rattle here. So everything was super tight when I got the sword. When I took it apart and sent the blade to Josiah and put it back together, there's a little bit of rattle. It'd be really easy for me to secure this down. However, the weather is very, very cold outside. It was 20 below the other day. Everything has shrunk here, so I'm not surprised. I have a lot of rattling Subbas, but it's just a note. A lot of times people think like, oh, the Subba's loose, it's a piece of junk. This is par for the course, and even when you deal with really high-end swords, this is just something that kind of happens. If you want them to be able to come apart easily enough, then the pieces all are made of different metals. They expand and contract at different rates, and these kind of things can develop. So it's not a big deal. It'd be easy to tighten up. I just haven't been really percussively aggressive with it. I've tried to keep everything very, very pretty. But it's worth noting that I've got just a little bit of Subba wiggle here. Again, not concerning, but I'm bringing it up because I've heard so many times like, oh, that $100 sword has a wiggly Subba. It's a piece of junk. Now, if it comes straight out of the box from a manufacturer that provides you a sword that can't be disassembled, that would be a problem. Here, taking it apart, which is going to take all of 3 minutes and a couple taps with the nail set, I'll be right as rain. Anyway, moving down, I will, I guess, talk about the Subba before I do. There are simple copper seppa that have been put in here. There's not a texture or anything. I think that was the right choice. They blend really well. The Subba is an Edo period Subba on here, and it more or less just has simple carved in swirly mitsudomes, which I saw this and I paid way too much money for it, but it's an antique Subba. Edo period is the guess that I'd have. It's plain on the other side. There's not much to look at apart from the swirly mitsudomes carved in the front facing side. And if you have a Subba, incidentally, that's more elaborate, typically it faces outwards, so when it's in your belt, more people can kind of see the bling on it. Moving to the Tanto, we also have some antique fittings. Now these came from different sets. We have some carved in swirly mitsudomes right here in a leaf pattern, and it's just an open work Samegawa piece. So the handle is ray skin. You could see that the fittings overlap. So what that means is this is usually a thing that I complain about on a lot of swords where, hey, the transitions aren't completely seamless. It's a different thing when it's intended to be that way, and that's what this is. So the Samegawa is done in a full wrap. It's kind of tough to make out where the seam is. It's right, is it right there? I don't even know where the seam actually is. It's tough to see. Regardless, there is a seam in here somewhere at some point, but well done, Mystery Man in Black. If I'm twirling it around this much and I can't tell where it is, something quite nice has been done. And the swirly mitsudome Menuki are also kind of inset into that Samegawa pattern. Really, really well done. It shows dimension and texture. It's a cool facet here, which means that this is intentional, so I don't mind it. The patina on both of these matches quite well. It's a simple kashira on the end, and these little copper pieces that would be where the ito ties through are made on here by the Mystery Man in Black, as was this copper Subba right here, or Subba placeholder type thing, is a copper seppa Subba type thing that is new, I guess I'm saying, and made by the Mystery Man in Black. And because there is copper and gold and black and copper and black and gold, there's a lot of different metal work here, and something that generally I don't like, admittedly. I don't like it, but I sent these fittings to the Mystery Man in Black knowing that there were different colors and expecting it to be different. And how they all tied in, honestly, doesn't bother my eye at all. And they will age in patina and change a little bit over time, but I'm not bothered by it. So there is, again, a swirly mitsudome cut in here. It kind of matches thematically what's going on and blends, I think, overall quite well. The next bit to talk about is the saya, which is just super cool. So one, swirly mitsudome, very tastefully kind of put in towards the end of the scabbard. It sticks out, it matches, it's very cool. But there is this red kind of gentle scratch pattern, so I believe there's red base. Black has been applied over the top, and some sanding is done that gives it this kind of birch or barky, organic feel to it. And it's done in this kind of deep red that has a little bit of brightness to it, but also just looks good. It's subtle in a way that if I'm walking around the dojo, nothing inherently grabs you about this sword from a distance. It doesn't look like a big blingy piece, but there are some things that pull your eye and make you see that there's some stuff going on here and that it's a special piece. This textured bit up at the top, these grooves that are cut in with this almost sandpaper-ish kind of feeling, are also really nice. I love the way it feels on my hand. I thought it would be really coarse and kind of, as my skin's dry, like grab, and it would be messy and hard to clean. It isn't. It just looks really cool. And if I had known the Mystery Man in Black could do this, I probably would have asked for it a number of times earlier. But it has a nice grippy texture to it. It's ribbed for my pleasure, and it looks good. It completes it. It breaks up the texture and things. It blends with the Ito and moves it along to the glossy part. It also keeps my hands from getting this all full of finger juice and from having to be a hard place to clean. So as a practitioner sword, to use this in the dojo, really like this edition here, and it's more robust and ergonomic and practical than I really expected it to be. And it also looks really, really, really cool. Now the sai on the Tanto matches more or less. It's a matching pair. I like that it's done the same way. I like thematically that it's a mini version, but I also like this big kojiri on the end. It's a big knob of horn, not something that I typically see, but I happen to really enjoy it. And the Tanto is a very small one. It's kind of a weird, an odd pairing, I guess I would say, in the sense that the Tanto is a smaller version of a Tanto than you would typically see. A lot of Japanese Tanto can be pretty big, robust things. This is a small utility knife. It's bigger than most utility knives, but also on the smaller side. And the sword is quite large. It's a my size sword. It could be a little larger. I wouldn't mind, honestly, if it was, but it's nearly 30 inches, I want to say. It's just shy of it, 29 3/4, somewhere in there. So it's a much longer sword and quite a short Tanto. It's not necessarily a super long sword, but it's longer than very often I've found these swords. These are all made to order, but for some reason nobody, or very few people, seem to get 30-inch, 31-inch swords, which would be kind of, I suppose, my preferred length. As I go to the blades, the Katana is an L6 blade. It's now been polished up by Josiah Boomershine, and he did an absolutely excellent job on this. Howard's L6 doesn't have a lot going on visually. The surface kind of runs to this kind of Suguha style hamon, and there are some kind of whispers before the hamon, but the hamon is usually subtle and simple, and it's, I don't know, very, very tool looking. There's not metallurgical characteristics in the surface of the steel, at least not too much to look at, but this polish does what it can to absolutely bring out the characteristics in Howard's work, and Josiah did a great job on the kissaki here. The yakote is quite lovely. Now, unfortunately, this sword, sharp as it is, popped through the packaging when it was sent to me, and the tip pierced the box. Unfortunately, it went into the concrete. So as a mark of how durable this is, this sword did penetrate the box, and it was sticking out basically the hamon side. So about 1/4 inch out of the box, the tip was poking out, and the tip was resting on the concrete when I took the box from my entryway. And all that's really there is basically like a 1/4 of a millimeter, maybe, in terms of damage. There's the smallest little ding. Josiah said to send it back to him and he'll fix it. However, I'll do that on my next polish. I'll send it back to Josiah and he can touch up the tip just because it's irritating. However, it's a very, very small amount of damage, and considering how bad it could have been, think that the sword poking through the box, that's not good. Whacking into the concrete, it could have been much worse, and it's, I guess, a testament to how durable these swords can be. It kissed the concrete and has very, very minimal damage. It's also exceptionally sharp because it cut through all of the packaging when the packaging was really quite robust. There was a lot of tape and paper and things like that, and usually these don't cut through the paper when you have multiple layers and you secure it really, really tight. It still managed to do that. I guess the post office kicked it all the way here. Not entirely sure. Regardless, the blade is fine. It has very, very minor damage. It is an irritation, a disappointment at the same time. It shows that the blade is really quite well made, and Josiah's polish, as always, brings out tons of detail, and it's a lovely thing to see. Now, the polish on the Tanto is a little different. This Tanto, I don't believe, is differentially hardened, and Josiah asked me if I wanted to have like a fake hamon put in, and I asked him not to make the Tanto anything it wasn't, just to bring out what was here. So it's a Damascus pattern, but you can make out the kind of mono steel core that Howard has used. And it's, again, very, very lovely. It has a lovely pattern from Howard, and it's also quite small, but the shape is quite good, and it is an aggressive spike to use for stabbing or cutting your food or whatever you want to do. Howard's a very, very capable knife maker. This is a simple Tanto, but the shaping is excellent, and the pattern on it is charming as well. So I really enjoy the pairing, showing the two sides of Howard. His capability as a knife maker, the fact that he works in other steels, is featured here. It's a Damascus, I believe, through hardened blade, and it has character and class of its own. And then the famous L6 blade for its robustness and durability. And Howard also knows how to make the shape on swords. This is my favorite L6 blade that I've held, and I was originally going to have this be the blade for the Shrooms Katana. However, I ended up getting another L6 blade, and I used the 28-inch one, thinking that the 29-inch blade was a little bit more my size. If I was ever going to keep one of them, it would be the one with swirly mitsudomes on it. So I ended up using this set of fittings on this. Even though it's simpler, there was more likely that I was going to like it, and that is exactly what has happened. This blade has some charm. It came out really, really well. It's balanced well. It feels great in the hand. It has the authority that I would look for in the cut, but it also feels nimble. Usually 29-inch and 29.25-inch blades can feel a little chunky. This blade is also not a small blade. It has a wider profile. It has a little bit more profile taper than you might be used to seeing in katana, but it just came out really, really great feeling. It's an exceptional feeling sword to move around. It has that balance as a practice blade, one that I feel like I could use in the dojo to practice EI, and while it's not light, it's not going to challenge me if I want to use it, but it is weight. I do have to work to move it. It's not a dainty sword. At the same time, in the cut, it feels like it has the authority and shape to do that quite well. And I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get a chance to put that to the test, but I may well do. If there was ever one I was going to keep so far, it would be this one. It's in the category of my size. I have to move my hips to draw it, so that's one of the things I look for. It's just in that size category where I can't cheat and just draw it with my hands. And yeah, I happen to really, really like how it looks, and I like this pairing as well. There's a Daisho, so if I ever get to a point where I get to wear a Tanto for my Toyama Ryu class where I would use this, then I have a matching Tanto, which would be, well, is just kind of neat and cool. And they make a handsome pair together and show the capability of Howard as a bladesmith. In terms of the style of works he's in, he obviously shapes both of them, but his capability as a knife maker in one steel, still in the Japanese vein, and also his famous L6 katana. So anyway, the only other bit that I didn't mention is the habaki. Both of these are made by this one is actually made by the Mystery Man in Black. The other one was made by Howard. I believe it came on the Tanto and was made by him. Anyway, those are all the things. I'll put links to Rado's website, to Josiah's Facebook, and Howard's site as well. I don't know if Howard's taking commissions right now, but every now and again he has some stuff up for sale there. And the rest of the fittings were random bits that I found. I can't unfortunately link them, but if you want to have custom sets made, Rado can do some really, really cool, amazing stuff. He can also make you a sword if you want one, and that will be a review I do at some point, because I recently got one in Shirosai, and it is also just spectacular. It has a wonderful feel, and something that I have to figure out how to get mounted. Anyway, that's all I've got. Hopefully you liked the video. If you have any questions, throw it in the comments down below. I'm curious to hear what you think of the set of fittings. Well, it doesn't really matter all that much because I love it, but I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to think. If you like my swirly Mitsudome theme, or if it's just too much at this point. Are you sick of seeing swirly Mitsudomes from me all the time, or is how the same theme can change over time and have different interpretations an interesting thing? Anyway, I prattled on long enough. Cheers, and thanks for watching.